Hi, welcome back to the channel. This week we are going to be talking about the Victorian art of decoupage eggs. And this is a time-honored spring tradition for many families that actually goes back hundreds of years. While the term decoupage is from the Middle French, meaning literally to cut out, the origins of decoupage go all the way back to the 12th century in eastern Siberia, when the tombs of warriors were decorated with felt cutouts. Now, the art of inlay into wood continued to rise in prominence, and lacquering also began to be added to each level of wood inlay, and a coat of varnish would be added to each level, and then sanding. And some pieces of furniture could have 30 to 40 layers of varnish. And there are certainly amazing woodworkers whose works grace our fine museums with their pieces. Now, for those that couldn't afford the extravagant works of art, an alternative kind of came into practice. And in the Florentine area, they developed a certain type of paper mache where they would add gilding and, of course, layers very similar to decoupage. And you can still find types of Florentine trays on the market today. And around the 18th century, another offshoot began in which pictures were cut out and applied to objects. And this is more the decoupage as we know it. And it even made its way to the court of Versailles, where Marie Antoinette was a huge fan of the craft. And this was probably where the term decoupage was used and really started to gain momentum. Now, during the 19th century, the Victorians, because of the many advances of the industrial age, had more time, so the everyday person could have time for craft instead of working from sunup to sundown. And that's probably when the art of decoupage reached its zenith. And the Victorians would repurpose beautiful Valentine's Day cards, gorgeous postcards from other holidays, as well as ladies' magazines. And the Germans developed beautiful foil papers called Dresden trims that the Victorians loved to use on boxes and hat bands, anything that they could get their hands on. And embossed papers were created, and it really just came to an amazing level of craft. And so during the springtime season, they began decorating eggs, and these could range from anything from chicken eggs, duck eggs, goose eggs, to, of course, if you had access to ostriches, ostrich eggs. And there are still many examples that can be seen of the Victorian art of embellishing eggs. So there's a few different type of techniques when you're talking about decoupaged eggs. Some of the eggs are traditional papered eggs that you would cut out and apply, and these can be from magazines to specific decoupage papers, and you apply those with the craft glue. And This is an egg that does feature the German trim. You can see the foil and embossing on these particular trims. And these two eggs are sugared eggs. And you can kind of see the difference in this egg is an unsugared egg, meaning without glitter. And be forewarned, whenever you touch them, you're gonna get glitter on your fingers. And of course, this is an egg that has been sugared. Now, and it's just to the individual's taste whether or not they want to do this. Now, this is a design that I really wanted to keep vibrant, because if you look closely, the Easter Bunny is wearing a skirt. I know for many individuals, they refer to the Easter Bunny in masculine terms, but I just love this bunny is getting it done. It has striped socks and bright red shoes, and it's truly charming. So I left that unsugared so you could really see the details. And some of the other treatments are, of course, you can layer on satouche trim, pearl beading. And so we are going to head over to the craft area. I've set up a step-by-step station that you can join me in learning the art of decoupage. Let's get crafting. Now, first and foremost is what type of egg are you going to be using? And of course, the Victorians used real eggs. The only eggs that I had in my refrigerator are organic eggs, and most organic eggs are brown. And you'll start by putting a little tiny pinprick at one end, and I usually use this with a needle, and then at the other end a little bit bigger hole. I do this end with a sharpened pencil, and a few quick shakes prior to making the hole on either end helps to break up the yolk. And then it's just using your lungs to blow out the contents, collect it in a bowl and use it for baking or cooking. I went ahead and did it ahead of time to show you, just because it does require some patience and time to use a blown egg, and white eggs are preferable. The application of the brighter colors, they tend to work better on a white egg, but as I said, these are the eggs that I have. An easier way that you might want to go is today they create craft eggs, which are quite realistic, and they come in a tray very similar to regular eggs. These were $4.99 for a dozen, but actually they were on sale for 50% off. So you get 12 eggs for $2.50. Now, the thing about the craft eggs is there is a center seam, which is quite visible. So you're going to want to camouflage that. And here you can see that I've used just some GIMP type of ribbon that I had in my scrap bag. But you can also use these beautiful Dresden trims. And I love these smaller daisy embossed trims, because you can cut the individual flowers out, and anywhere you want a little bit of glitz and glitter. And they come in a wide variety of colors and styles. You can find these at scrapbooking stores, Etsy, eBay. You would search under the terms foil trim, German paper trim, or Dresden trim, and I just selected colors that felt very spring-like, and any type of ribbon or lace also works really well. And so for the Dresden trims, you'll kind of see that they are a little bit more firm compared to, of course, a ribbon. And so for the application, I personally find that hot gluing the Dresden trims is the way to go. But they certainly can be used with white craft glue. It just takes a little bit longer to dry, and you're just going to use that seam as your guide and just carefully secure it. Now I start at the smaller portion of the egg because I kind of consider that to be the top of the egg. And this way, when you go to add your trim and your hanging loop, which we'll do that in a little while, then that seam will be covered. And then you can decide how you would like to decorate your egg further. I've done it with ribbon and pearls and satouche, but you can also use rice paper trims, and beautiful rice paper Easter decor is often sold in sheets like this. The most beautiful papers I've found do come from Italy, and you can find these in scrapbooking stores as well as on Etsy or eBay, and just type in Easter rice paper, spring rice paper, and you'll see so many different and beautiful designs. Now, the interesting thing about how to apply the rice paper is that a lot of people would think, oh, you just cut your designs out. But that is actually not the case. If you see where I've already taken out some of the designs, you can see that I actually tear them out. And the reason for this is you actually do want that jagged edge, because when you're applying it, you can then get an application surface that is almost invisible. And the secret that I have found to get the rice paper to lay smooth on a surface that is not flat, because of course eggs have that gentle curve, is water. And so you'll take your torn out piece of rice paper and you'll actually completely submerge it and sort of squeeze out the excess. And then I will put the little egg down here, and then you just sort of smooth that out. Okay, and sometimes you'll still need to take then a paper towel or clean rag to kind of take off the excess, and the water will hold it in position while you smooth it out. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little chick to the top on this side, and again just kind of lightly dab it. Now the water will not permanently hold those designs in place. You actually do need to use a medium In this instance, I do like Mod Podge, and I select the matte because once it dries, it really is an eggshell finish, which you are trying to mimic. And you are going to get your hands dirty, so a little wet cloth is good as well. And you'll just start by dipping a paintbrush in, and you'll want to gently cover, and you can kind of see how the egg embellishment gets covered, and then with your finger smooth out any bumps or ridges. But you don't want to overwork it too much because the dyes in the rice paper will start to smear. So just be very gentle. A little dab will do you. And you don't really have to cover the entire egg. If you're using a matte finish glue, it will just dry clear and have an invisible finish. So from there, you're just going to smooth, making sure there's no bumps or ridges. And then you're going to set that aside to dry. And actually the Mod Podge dries pretty quickly. So if you're creating your eggs in an assembly line sort of fashion, by the time you get to the end of the dozen eggs, that egg will be dry again. And another way that is actually my preference are beautiful German decoupage cutouts. And they look like they come in a sheet, and normally they will be mailed in a plastic container, and you can get all sorts of designs. So these were obviously Easter themed, but this was some Victorian scrap that I had found in some magazines. And so I cut those out, and this is actually a page that normally baseball cards are organized in, but they work really well to organize magazine cutouts. Now again, the magazine cutouts, the dye will smear a bit if it's overworked, compared to the true German decoupage papers will not smear. And you can find these in all shapes and sizes. So if you have some ostrich size eggs, these are absolutely fantastic. And this is just a regular report sheet that you can get at any office supply store or a shop that carries similar things. So to cut out your German trims, you'll remove it, but then you'll also cut out all the white areas around the design. And that can sometimes be a bit frustrating for smaller children who haven't developed the dexterity. So simpler magazine type of embellishments may be a better choice for them. And then how I start is I do add a layer of glue to the back of the decoupage piece of paper, and for this I'm just going to center it. And again, now you're applying a flat piece of paper to a curved element, and patience is your friend. So from there, I'm actually going to coat the top of the paper, because as it gets saturated with the glue, it becomes a bit more pliable. And working with your fingers, you're going to start smoothing out the ridges and the bumps. And you know, it's when you first begin, you'll get one end all laid down, and then as you start to work the other end, the end that you just finished will pop back up. So you may need to keep adding a bit of glue and keep smoothing it. I work from the center and push out, and center and push out. And of course, if you're working with a real egg, you don't want to be too hard. It takes just a light hand, and going around the edge, making sure everything is secure. And so it doesn't apply as easily as the rice papers do. It takes a bit more finessing, but I love the colors, and it is a bit harder if you get a lump or bump in the rice paper to get that smoothed out. So again, then you're just gonna set that down and let it rest. Now, once you have all of your eggs embellished, then you can decide if you want to sugar them. And sugaring is just adding glitter. And beautiful German glass glitter sparkles wonderfully. And again, you can get that at specialty card shops, crafting stores, or online. And then some of the craft and hobby shops will carry a higher level of glitter. And you can see that this side has been glittered and this side has not. So even while, if you wanted to go ahead and test to see, again, these do dry very quickly. And so while that gets dry for just one more extra moment, you're going to take a sheet of paper and you're just going to crimp one end, and then you're going to hold your egg, and if you use the Mod Podge, it doesn't grab the glitter quite as firmly as a clear drying tacky or craft glue. So if you are going to plan on keeping the eggs for several years, or you're going to be sending them in the mail, or traveling any great distance with the eggs, the craft glue does hold on to the glitter a little bit better, but the sheen is a bit shinier with some of the craft glues. So I do prefer, when working with the rice papers, to go ahead and use the Mod Podge. And then in this case, you will go ahead and cover the entire design, and you're only going to do one side of the egg at a time, because of course you need a dry side for the drying time. So a very thin coat, you can kind of see, because it glistens a bit. And then you're going to take your glitter and you're going to sprinkle it over that paper that you just laid down. this glitter has little light blue and pink flecks, but then you're going to shake it off. Just kind of double check that it got coated. Any excess on your Dresden trim you can knock off, and so you can see that because you didn't add any glue on that side, you've just glittered the one side. And then you'll lay it face up to dry. But by doing it over the paper and then you've creased the bottom, you can pour the excess back into the glitter container, and so then you can actually just reuse the glitter over and over, and it is a definite cost saver. I don't like to waste. And after it has completely dried, you'll then add your loop. So for wider ribbons, I kind of try to crimp the ends. And again, this is where hot glue is lovely. But if this is a craft that you're doing with kids, by all means use white craft glue so that they don't burn their fingers. And then make sure that your ribbon is not twisted, that it's going in the right direction to form the loop. And on the other end, I'm just going to kind of pinch it. This is actually vintage seam binding. When I go to estate sales, I often will purchase bags of different ribbons and trim, and oftentimes you'll just have these tiny bits of seam binding or lace or ribbon, and this is the perfect project to use up those scraps. And then double check that it's going the right way, and then if need be, add a little bit more. Now, there is going to be a little seam there, and so you can do one of two things. You can take your little tiny bit of Dresden trim that's cut out a single flower. So it's a little tiny piece, but it's enough to hide that seam. And then again, you can just add, and you have to be careful if you want to use a toothpick to position the Dresden trim on top so you don't burn your hands. I craft so much that I think I've developed a tolerance to the heat of craft glue. And of course, with children involved, you definitely want some adult supervision. Now, I also like to add a little bow. And with hot glue, you're always going to get those pesky strands, so try to remove them as best as you can. If they are a stage 5 Klingon, hit it with a warm hairdryer and they instantly disappear. So this is just another little piece of seam binding that I've tied into a bow. Another small dab of hot glue. You just position it in place. It kind of acts as a lovely little frame for the egg. And again, pesky little strings. And I will probably go back and sugar this egg. But that is up to you whether or not you want to do that. The sugaring does dull the vibrant colors a bit, but I do love the look of sugared eggs. That's just my personal preference, and these will be gifts for people I love and my neighbors. And I hope you have enjoyed this craft. If you would like to be notified of future projects, just hit the subscribe button, and a thumbs up or a comment is always greatly appreciated. I do try to reply to every single one. And a supply list will be in an accompanying post on my website, and the direct link for that will be down below in the description box. Just click on the words "click more" and it will expand and you'll see everything there. Thank you so much and have a wonderful spring. Decoupage comes from, and there's our Grace. I know, okay. Okay, ready? Hi, welcome back to the channel this week. Grace is joining me because she's being a really big pest.
She's getting handsy.
She's getting handsy. Okay, can I put you down?